Hey everyone, before I get started, I just want to remind you that if you like my content, hit that like button, subscribe to my channel, and then join the Militiaman and Crew Patreon community by clicking the link in the caption.
Hey, good evening everybody. Militiaman and Crew here tonight, and we're going to talk to you about plenty of things that have happened in the last couple of days. One of the things that we have been watching, as you all know, is that Iraq has been in the UN in New York City for the last since the 18th, and it's been 4 days, and today was the last day of for Iraq. I think it goes on to the 26th, to be fair, but al-Sudani made a speech this afternoon, and collectively we all know that there was plenty of things that happened as early as the 18th. There might have been a little confusion out there that folks thought that Sudani made his main speech on Monday. Now, he was on the sidelines talking to people, and that's pretty normal behavior during things like this. So look, there is what they call the path of development, which is going to shape the face of Iraq's country in the next stage. We've talked about the Silk Road Initiative in the past. The Development Road is what Iraq calls it. And effectively, they're going to interlink those two names, agendas, issues, however you want to word it. But the Development Road project is the one that will link Iraq to that road initiative through China and then on into Europe. So it basically is stating that it will put Iraq on a path to prosperity, economic growth, well-being, and progress. And so ultimately, if they're going to build a road initiative, they're going to, from a country that's been war torn, they're going to build new cities, they're going to build industrial cities. The infrastructure alone is going to be immense for those roads. I mean, you got to have sewer systems, water systems, public works, all that stuff. That's what's happening. It's been ongoing. It's not just started. It's been in the process, but it hasn't been an international initiative just yet. But ultimately, at the end of this, when I get to the back side of this, we're going to tie it in with al-Sudani and some words that he had to say today. If you haven't caught his speech, I put it in Patreon. I put it out on the public for free. I put it out there so that everybody could have a chance to take a look at it and see what exactly, or what similarly Patreon and Discord chat room have to offer on a regular basis. It's education. It helps people. Samson, she does phenomenal work. She's in different time zones, so we've been over that in the past. Just want to reiterate it. We have awesome team members, Sunkissed, Gigi. They help people come in and to the Discord, get them settled in, and so that they can understand and follow along quite well. So, but to move on to this particular situation, it says the project will face, that Iraq is facing, is it's going to be a post-oil era. So they're kind of getting to that point where they feel that it's necessary to advertise that they're not only going to do oil, they're not only going to do natural gas, they're going to do electric power, solar power, other clean initiatives. Nothing wrong with that, and obviously that's part of this process, but it's their path to prosperity and economic growth. So as we go along, like I've already said, they're going to have dozens of residential cities on both sides of this road, and they've given some destinations. And I think they outlined it with a map today. I don't have that for you, but there's probably good ones out there they'll show you how that is all going to interlink, whether it be railway, roadway, and or the international global ocean highway, which is going to be into the Port of Foul. So that'll be something you'll see in the future. Basically, it's stating is that this is basically a first step to implement that strategic road. So al-Sudani coming to New York is an instrumental step, and so we'll see if that is the step that gets them to the beginning and towards the end, which is that fully blown development. It says after development strategies and clarifying the ideas of the project, it will be contributing to and the explanation of what impact it's going to have on the various activities in Iraq, from items such as economic, industrial, service, and social aspects. So obviously, if you're thinking about building out a country, all of those things, economic, industrial, service, and social aspects, are all components that fit that realm. It looks like there was a gentleman out today. He says the government's insistence on the project is an indication that there is a new mentality that seeks to make the Iraqi reality different by achieving development that has been absent from the scene since 2003. So basically, it was a booming metropolis, relatively speaking, since back in 2003. Unfortunate circumstances, I think, got started in, earlier on. Created an environment. Well, they need to come back again, and they're serious, and they're seeking strength to strengthen their natural resources as a component to move forward into the investment world. It says the non-oil state and the lack of total dependence on oil in the sector to finance the budget every year. Look, so what they're going to do is they're not only going to have oil, they're going to have non-oil revenues, and we've been over those a few times. So I don't want to get into every single one of those items, but ultimately they have abundant natural resources that are going to jumpstart this whole system. And we can see that the 23, 24, 25 budget that I've talked about in numerous different videos is going to be supportive here, because that's what a tripartite budget is going to do for this country. They need to do these projects. They need to get them off the ground. And it's obvious that Soudani was in New York specifically to pull that off. All of these points that are made, everyone knows that they dealt with al-Soudani in good faith. So basically, al-Soudani, if you remember, he was denied access to the United States some time back when he requested it. And they gave some instructions, if you will. They gave him 1, 2, and 3. And obviously now he's there and done and probably on his way home, probably as we speak. Not for sure, but he's probably likely getting ready to come home at least, okay? So, but the point is that all of these points that have been made earlier on are that they allowed him to show up in good faith. I don't really personally believe that al-Soudani would have that leverage to do all the deals that he was talking to. Think about it. When he was in Iraq before he left, he met with Stellar, he met with Total, he met with all these different companies before he left. But guess what? When he got here, he talked to GE, he talked to Honeywell, and he talked to one of the most powerful law firms in the world. And if you look at my article, what I wrote, I'm not 100% sure I have the actual law firm, because the way it was written and translated is difficult. But the cool part is, if I'm right, you need to see it, because they advertise that they're the scariest attorneys in the world as far as negotiations are concerned. So I might be wrong, but I think I am spot on. So we'll see how that turns out. Basically, is stating that the Sudanese government has been successful in its steps that they've been taking, and the new experiences that they're going to have are basically going to benefit the country and the citizens. So that's the first part of what I wanted to get across, is that was like the beginning of where we are and where we're going to be. It looks like in a brief topic, this is just some key points. The Prime Minister Shia al-Soudani, he's basically stressed that Iraq's commitment to the agreements with OPEC and OPEC plus countries in a way that preserves the interests of producers and consumers, and Iraqi production capabilities will be part of these understandings. They're saying that we will direct part of our oil production to operate refineries outside Iraq. And we discussed the matter with countries like Bulgaria, the refineries in China and Malaysia. So there's still going to be a oil dominant circumstance, but there's going to be a mix. They go on to say that oil prices, they like them because they're relatively 85, 90, as high as WTI is at 90, I think, 89, and then the Brent is probably 92, somewhere in that neighborhood today. So it's pretty powerful information that ultimately that they feel comfortable with the oil price, but also they're going to talk about that they're going to be activating their country's natural gas is really going to be a big deal. That's just another one of those components. But once they do that, they're going to wean themselves off of Iran, and they're going to be self-sufficient. And I think they want to try to pull that off within a couple of years. But that doesn't have any effect on timing as far as we're concerned. It's just going to be an ongoing process. It looks like they've started to the important projects with Total. They've done the 5th rounds with the Emirati and the Chinese companies as far as gas is concerned. They have 11 additional fields, exploration blocks that they're going to be working on with natural gas. So they're really serious about this investing aspect of Iraq, and al-Sudani has been key on that. There is a strategic relationship between Iraq and the United States. And the meeting with the U.S. Secretary of State discussed the activation of these strategic framework agreement with the United States, the entry of American companies, and the resumption of oil exports through the Turkish port of Cyan. These are all little brief snippets that I wanted to make sure that we are all talking about, because these are like peripheral things in the background that are fascinating and yet really kind of important. Basically what they all do is if they're all tied together at the same time, it's going to help Iraq be supportive of their currency and the value of that currency, because all the income streams are going to be able to support Iraq to get all these investment projects done. Rebuilding and reconstructing a country, a war-torn country, is a global initiative, and it looks like what I said earlier on. It says that the United States gave the world, everybody, UN, right, gave Iraq in good faith the permission to come to the UN on good faith that he's going to allow this country to get out to the world. This isn't going to be a Kuwait situation like we had years ago. Okay, this is going to be the real deal. When we're talking about coming to our shores and having Honeywell and GE and the largest, my opinion, one of the scariest attorney firms for business arbitration law in the world, is pretty fascinating. So it's exciting. This part here, it says, as far as the security is concerned, the security and stability of Iraq is phenomenal. Their forces are totally capable of taking care of it. It sounds like the coalition forces have been, tapping the place in and out in the sense of, taking care of the ISIS manner. Iraq is saying that ISIS is basically taking care of enough to where that their security forces can handle it. Training is their main focus in the future as far as the coalition forces are concerned, and we can basically agree with that. It says we're interested in understanding rapprochement, settling problems between Iran and the United States. So there's some, give and take around the world. The whole idea is to get the region on a level playing field. Not only that, but the world. If you remember my last video and some of the articles that I've been writing about, is that the Iraq is going to be, out of the UN information, is going to be giving confidence to not only Citibank, JP Morgan Chase, but they're going to do that with the international financial system. So basically, when they state that they're a sovereign state, this is pretty heavy, because if they're a sovereign state, they have to have a sovereign currency, don't they? I would think though. So let's see if they pull this off, because Iraq needs to have an international acceptable currency, and at this stage, it's not. So we're going to see how this turns out. But ultimately, Iraq wants interest for the common interest, but they don't want any interference from outside sources in their internal affairs. And I think Iraq has basically shown and proven to themselves to be mediators, as we know from Iran, Saudi Arabia, potentially Israel, Saudi Arabia, or on and on and on. So we'll see how that turns out. And here again, this is something that's a little bit internal, some brief snippets here. It is expectations that the oil and gas law will be passed after the local elections. Well, the oil and gas law after elections coming this next December is not what we're waiting for. The point is that they need to have some agreements that need to be taken care of. And basically, they're stating is Iraq is, it's not two states. It's not Kurdistan and Iraq as two states together. It's unified, and so that they need to get that together. But the point is, what they're saying is that they can approve this law at any time. And at this stage, when they say that, it's almost like, well, they're just waiting for what we're waiting for. The valuation of the country needs to be taken into consideration to be able to allow for that oil and gas law to be done, and the value of those assets. Oil and gas, what they brought up earlier was what they're talking about, 85 to 90 bucks a barrel, $90 a barrel. That's significant. I'm not so sure that the 23, 24, 25 budget is any more than 70. So there's got to be some surplus there if that's how that works. But to be fair, the ultimate goal here is the central government will be distributing the remaining oil revenues throughout the country on a per capita basis, and allows the governance freedom to award exploration and production contracts. So they're working for that to approve this law at any time, because it sounds like they have it sweet enough so that everybody's a win-win-win. Those are my words, you guys. But it says, while the central government distributes the remaining oil revenues throughout the country on a per capita basis and allows governance the freedom of those things, production and contracts. Ultimately, what the bottom line is, the federal government has the control, but they will allocate the funds and distribution fairly among citizens. It's pretty much that simple. And they go, the fact is, it says the citizens will benefit from it, as oil revenues will be distributed fairly, equally, and they're pointing out that the governments bear the consequences of the oil extraction will benefit as well. The federal government has greater freedom in contracting with companies. Companies will have reduction in their restrictions on an extraction and their export file. Basically, this guy Al Fayed, he is saying that the law is, quote, excellent, and the implementation without the political pressure or external or internal interference has the public interest in mind. That's what's going to be prevailing. So that's another fascinating situation that's been happening and leading up to. There's meetings with Al Sudani and the American Chamber of Commerce. Obviously, we all know that the American Chamber of Commerce, International Chamber of Commerce, all the Chamber of Commerces have businesses in mind. We all know that. It is Prime Minister Mohammed Shia al-Sudani confirmed today, Friday, the 22nd, that Iraq has a draft system to regulate electronic commerce. Keep that in mind. That's pretty heavy, because electronic commerce is probably e-government, e-banking, e-payments and settlements. I mean, they've come around. They're not just dealing with pencil and paper. The government is committed to protecting intellectual property. Pretty big in the news. Everybody wants their stuff protected. All investors coming in, they don't want everybody stealing. They walk in with a new widget and somebody steals it. We've heard about that happening. Noting that the economic reform is a priority, so they know that their economics is in the front and center. And it says it cannot be implemented without the presence of an effective and capable private sector and partner with the government. So what they're saying is that if the government and the private sector are working in conjunction to get this knocked out of the park, and basically the American Chamber of Commerce, in the presence of a number of businessmen, investors, and representatives of major American companies, they're all there in agreement of this type of situation, or they wouldn't be there. He says Al Sudani stressed accordingly, right? Quote, Iraq is a fertile land for investment in many important sectors, and there are natural resources that have not been invested yet. And the time has come to invest them in a way that achieves prosperity for the Iraqi people and contributes to strengthening the strategic relationship with the United States. So there you have it. So Al Sudani, whether some of the people in the news that you see, they want us completely gone everywhere. They just, you got to be careful with what you see and what you hear. But truth is that big business, United States, we got France, we got the EU, we got China, we got not North Korea, but South Korea, on and on and on. Bulgaria, Germany, they're here to do business. Total France, right? That's all what they're talking about. They want this country to be a hub, if you will, and a complete avenue stream to produce global trade. It's kind of hard for me to get it out because it takes a lot of things to think about, but the bottom line is the Silk Road Initiative, the Development Road Initiative is all about trade, and it's going to be a massive situation, and that's underway. So firstly, again, with all the exploration that's been going on, Iraq is basically has their focus is key with the government and the private sector. Okay, so we're going to see this, and it's not limited to just the security aspect. It's going to be about the investments aspect. They have the security and they have the stability, and they can't just rely on just that security. They need the private sector, so they're really focused in on it. They reiterate that the electronic payment law, their financial banking reform, they reiterate their relationship with the United States Federal Reserve Bank, and they also talk about the United States Treasury having a component in this because the systems are all interlinked. I mean, the electronic systems, we talked about that, electronic payment, right? It says today they have a clear, transparent trade subject to global compliance standards in money transfers. So they're talking about money transfer globally. So they're gonna, when they talk about the dollar and people get scared about the United States dollar completely falling apart, I think the people ought to rethink that, because even when the dinar changes value, they're still going to have dollars out there. They're just going to have a different ratio. That's all. Keep it in mind. They basically are supporting, it says, we call on all American companies to present their challenge facing their presence and work in Iraq to develop solutions for the private sector, which is part of the budget law. There's support for that. And basically, the Iraqi government is going so far as working with German Hermes Foundation and the Italian Soche Foundation, and they're basically stating that they're prepared to provide production lines to important laboratories and factories in the industrial sector to exchange for 15% from Iraqi businessmen and 85% provided by the government as a sovereign guarantee. Pretty easy to think that's a pretty good guarantee to have a lot of money on the table that's protected. It says while that at this stage of the game, they've above and beyond all that. I mean, they're going to be building hospitals, they're going to be building the roads and all those different circumstances. Pharmaceutical industries, they basically so far have 245 requests to establish production lines for that pharmaceutical industry. But in the end, they just already state that they've concluded the Emirati Chinese deals with for solar power and with Total, the gas and solar power. Those guys are going to knock it out of the park. So we're going to see how that turns out. And then today, it looks like that the Iraqi Chamber of Commerce and the Japanese JICA discussed developing the private sector. So both Japan and Iraq are talking about getting together. It says the Federation of Iraq Chamber of Commerce and the Japanese organization JICA discussed today, quote, the Federation of Iraq Chambers of Commerce and the Japanese JICA organization discussed a joint work agreement aimed at developing the private sector and upgrading all its aspects. There you go. Who better knows about a war-torn country? Japan. I mean, they've been through this before. Germany, they've been through the same thing before. Okay, reconstruction of a country. They had to rebuild their countries. They were part of that, so they have some expertise. Makes you think. So it says the meeting focused on the importance of benefiting from the Japanese experience in managing the private sector of Japan's economy, as the experience in Iraq can be benefited from, and address the reality of developing the private sector for entrepreneurship and the mechanism of linking it with Japanese companies to exchange expertise and practical experiences and develop the capabilities and skills of companies in all these regions. So it goes on to say, which is interesting, they input this, it says the union submitted an invitation to the organization to attend the introductory symposium on Iraq's entry into the World Trade Organization, which will be held on October 4th, 2023, in the hall of the Federation of Iraqi Chambers of Commerce, and also to the Emerging and Small Projects Conference for Entrepreneurship, which will be held in the cooperation with the Sector Development Department. Anyway, the bottom line is they're going to have that meeting on the 4th. There's an additional one that comes on the 5th on the backside of that, which is the Baghdad International Fair. And you can see where this is going. Iraq is going international. How can you deny it? It is completely phenomenal. And so here we go. Al-Sudani meets in New York with a number of representatives of American companies. We started this at the beginning. We're coming to that conclusion tonight, but check this out. It says Shia al-Sudani met in New York on Thursday evening with a number of presidents and representatives of American companies on the sidelines of the participation in the 78th session of the United Nations General Assembly. So the American companies, General Electric, Honeywell, and an American law firm, Kuvenkin, which I think is Quinn Emanuel, we'll find out, the multinational technology group, no, forgive me, that's the multinational technology group is Honeywell. But look, they're going to have cooperation between Iraq and these companies. They're basically looking at they've had previous agreements, and they're looking at within a framework of the government's pursuit of economic reform and laying out the foundations for technological and industrial development in the Iraqi economy. So obviously, these brief snippets that I'm giving you are setting the stage. It says that the government's ongoing efforts to build infrastructure, as well as developing the rest of the economic and industrial aspects, they are completely 100% involved. I put out some links for GE, Honeywell, and Quinn Emanuel on our Patreon website. I highly recommend you come into Patreon, find the article that states Al-Sudani meets in New York, keywords, and you'll find the links to that. And then once you start to put those things together, you'll see like, wow, it's pretty fascinating because they're the bigger players. They're on American shore, and if I'm not mistaken, this Quinn Emanuel is an interesting one because it's in Los Angeles, California. So shout out to Petra, because that's one of those things that Petra and a few others that live out there. Anyway, last thing I'm going to talk about, which is key, is that today there was about 20 pages, and I'm not getting into that, so be prepared. I'm almost done, and I'm going to come up with a couple just key points that are the most fascinating parts about this, that kind of tells you where we are. If you remember that all my videos have been kind of a study about Iraq and what is going on as we see it derived from the news, a little bit of peripheral sources, outside sources, but the bottom line is that we still triangulate all of our data to the news, and when we can do that and get it to the point where we feel comfortable with the crew, we don't just rely on outside sources. We rely on what's in print, because there's print that's good, bad, and indifferent, but we try to focus in on the best, which is hopefully the good. And so here we have the speech by Mohammed Shia al-Sudani, the Prime Minister of the Republic of Iraq, in the United Nations General Assembly on the 78th session, September 22nd, 2023. A couple of the key snippets from the very beginning. The government of the Republic of Iraq affirms its commitment to the principles of international law, the respect for all UN resolutions, and its determination to establish the best relations with everyone, especially neighboring countries. It says that we reject interference in our country's internal affairs under any pretext and at the time necessary. Our Constitution is that Iraq should not be a launching pad for aggression against other countries. And we call on everyone to respect Iraq's sovereignty and territorial integrity. So that statement, by him stating specifically that respect Iraq's sovereignty, is saying to me that Iraq is sovereign. I think I pointed that out earlier. I may have missed it, but I highlighted it, and I know that there's another statement that says we are sovereign. So that's a good feature, because if they're sovereign, there's things that come with that. Currency is one of them, so we'll see. But in the meantime, it goes on page 8 of the so-called 20-page document today. It says, we reserve our right to take appropriate measures in accordance with what has been approved by the international laws and conventions to deter any violation against our country. So again, they want their sovereignty. It says, They have an emphasis on extending our hand to all neighboring countries in order to preserve the security and stability of our region and its economic progress and prosperity in a way that achieves the well-being of its people in the same way. So their aim is to achieve regional integration. When I heard that today, when I was listening to the speech live at the UN, integration, achieve regional integration, that means they're connecting with each other. I went, wow, I got to get a hold of this. Thank you, Sunkist, by the way, for doing a fine job in getting it. And then Frankie G, both of you guys, appreciate your guys' efforts getting this translated in such a fast manner. Appreciate it very much. It goes on to say that we see the possibility of achieving economic integration through unifying and approaching economic policies, customs, tariffs, and laws, and linking economic infrastructure together through joint investment and offering. So basically, they're gonna link infrastructures together throughout the region. They're gonna do it economically and infrastructure-wise, interconnecting countries, highways. So it's awesome, you guys. It says that on page 18, it says, in conclusion, at the end, time has come for Iraq to take control of its natural place in the international community after its remarkable success in fighting terrorism on behalf of the world and defeating it with the help of friends and partners. It says that the Iraqi people have recorded immortal heroics in combating the worst criminals and the prominent role of the wise authority represented by the Grand Ayatollah Mr. Ali al-Sistani, and his blessed fatwa, and the valor of all Iraqi security military forces in these victories, as well as laying the foundations of societal peace. Al-Sudani is giving praise to the Grand Ayatollah Mr. al-Sistani, and that's a key component because he carries a lot of respect in the country and in the world. Iraq has become safe and stable. Key point, Iraq is safe and stable, and we will continue the process and work through productive diplomacy to make Iraq a center for meeting brothers, friends, and partners, and build a safe and prosperous region for all its peoples. And last, page 20, Iraq is now distinguished and the strength of its resources, its geopolitical location, and the will of its people, which face the challenges and triumph over them with the complete merit. Thank you, al-Sistani states. But I want to reiterate the main key point from the very beginning, which I didn't reiterate. It says the time has come for Iraq to take its natural place in the international community. That statement is the end statement. Time has come for Iraq to take its natural place in the international community. Is basically stating, al-Sudani says, it's time for us to open up to the world. In my view, it needs to take its place in the natural community, and I agree with that, and I'm looking forward to it, because if he said it at the UN, he said that to the world, and that's a key statement. I would say that that's a borderline of being an amazing announcement. So let's see how it goes. I appreciate you guys' time. Thank you for being here on a Friday night. For all you new folks, if you like my channel, please hit the like button, do the subscribe, and for all the hard work that everybody puts together, the whole crew member, if you hit those donate buttons, that would be awesome to help. Anything's good.
Once again, guys, don't forget to hit that like button if you like this content. Subscribe to the channel or join us at the Militia Man and Crew Patreon community for even more exclusive content. You can also donate to this channel by hitting the links in the banner to help keep this page up and running. Your generous support is greatly appreciated, as always. Much, much appreciated. Thank you so much, and have a great day.